cause some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line? Address it to the Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that we are well organized. When you get on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem is not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Again, the numbers 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And you can also follow this live video stream on our YouTube page at Vaughan Radio and our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again for joining us. Your voice in the community, thought that get results. Tonight, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, good evening.
Good evening, Rebel, and good evening to the entire listening and viewing audiences tonight. And of course, I have to say good evening to my fellow panelists. Rebel, if I may, I just want to just extend some heartfelt greetings to a few people who have been helping me in a project that I've been working on. There's a Hazeline and Kelvin Claxton. Those two people are brothers and sisters living in the United States of America. There's a Camilla Trotman. There's a Orville Daniel right here. Carlisle Powell and some anonymous donors through him. Hastings Daniel and some other anonymous people who really have been supporting an effort for me to help out some young ladies with children who have been in desperate needs. And I really would like to encourage anyone else who want to reach out to check with me, because there are some people in our community who are really hurting, and we really can make a difference if we all would just pool whatever little resources that we have. Rebel, thanks for the invitation to join you tonight.
The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Rebel, and a very pleasant good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to those who are listening and viewing this edition of Let's Talk tonight. I want to say good evening to all of those persons who are feeling a bit down tonight, whether it's because they are ill or the loss of a loved one or some other reason. I hope that they would soon be out of that state of mind. To those families who are in mourning tonight, I want to take this opportunity and offer my condolences for the loss of a loved one, a colleague, or a friend, acquaintance. I hope that they can remember that individual with fond memories. To those who are celebrating tonight, whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some accomplishment in their life, I certainly want to wish them a wonderful evening, and I hope that they can have a good time despite some of the challenges that we are still facing with our COVID. Webo, I want to, from the outset, say thanks once again for the invitation, and I'm certainly looking forward to the discussion tonight. And if you would allow me from the outset, there are a few matters that I would wish to put on the table. Thanks, Webo, and good evening.
Conrad Nair-Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and good evening to your staff here at Vaughan Radio, to my colleagues and friends around the table. Pleasant good evening to everyone in tune to the program. Welcome once again to this wonderful and far-reaching program. Webo, it's always a pleasure to gather here to discuss issues affecting the people. Webo, of course, there's a few issues, and of course, it's a hard time. You know, hard times are honor, and of course, we are concerned about that, and we are, of course, extending any help we can give to anyone, moral, emotional support, whatever. You know, that's very important that we do that in these times, Webo. And even though some are a bit down, suffering, for others it's just another day in paradise. So, Webo, a pleasant good evening once again, and I'm happy to be here.
Conrad Nair-Liebert, the Honorable Spencer Brand, Dr. Patricia Bartlett. Thank you all again for joining us. Let's see. I wanted to do something up front. Since we were here last, you know, in this version of the Let's Talk program, thought that get results. A number of things have happened in terms of different guests and so on that we hosted here. And last week, I think it was, we had an interesting guest here who was Mr. Stapleton, Leonard Stapleton. He's a historian among other things. And he was the one who was, I think, the head of the project of those signs, historical signs that were put up recently around the island. And what I find was interesting in it is that, and maybe sometimes controversy brings out, like they have a saying, a bad wind never blows, because maybe if we didn't have some heavy criticism of some of the work that was done, maybe we would have never gotten him. And then found out that they're doing another project writing the history of Nevis and so on and so forth. And you know me, I always try to find a light moment in anything in terms of life. And he said that he is encouraging persons who have stories that only they alone know to come forward with it, so that so that they can have it recorded. And I thought to myself, so I asked him, keep asking him, so in other words, if you alone know a story, you bring it forward. And he said yes. I found that was interesting, and that to me was my light moment from that, because you could imagine. And I think I pointed out to him that I read a quotation once which says, when you read the account of two persons, right, recounting their view of the same accident, does it not make you wonder about history? So I thought that was interesting. But the other thing that I put to him as well, because everybody wanted the signs to read the way they would like them. They wanted the signs to be written the way they would like it to be read. And I don't know how many of you have heard the debate or the discussion that things that have historical names on them. For instance, I use Prince William Street as a hypothetical example. And people would argue, why don't you take that name off? Because I or nobody knows who is Prince William and what that is all about. And what I find is interesting in that debate is that if that is the philosophical way we go about history, it means then that in the next 30 years, the names that we put on, the question is, won't the current people at the time say the same thing? So, here's a question. Would you not rather educate the people about the history and what it is all about than just to take it off? But, you know, that's for, I suppose, a discussion. Also, we had the launch of the fourth political party that has declared to contest the next Nevis Island Assembly elections. And I understand up to, as I am speaking now, some people are lost. And some people are debating and arguing, is it not three? And so, just like with other things, credibility is important to me. So I thought that I will present some evidence that it is four. Here are some clips from when the third party launched. Now, I might hasten to add before I play the excerpts that when I had the honor of interviewing that political party or organization, whatever, I put it to them, I asked a question based on what they were saying. So, you're suggesting to me that by the end of the next Nevis Island Assembly election, you will be at the helm of government? They said yes. What does that say to you? Now, we can look at it afterwards, but it's just three short clips, just to jog the memory of you and the memory of the listeners, and to clear my name, there are 4 political parties have declared to contest. None of them have said they are withdrawn, and on the flip side of it, I'll point out to you that there's a strong indication that there will be perhaps a historic number of candidates that will be contesting this election. So here we go. Are you aligned or affiliated with any political party on St. Kitts?
No, we are not. Zero interest at this point.
No interest at all.
Are you splinters of any political political party in Nevis?
No, we are not. We are not splinters of any political party. And let me correct that, because when we talk to the people, the only authority to talk to the people in Nevis is us. We are developing up a plan for the people of Nevis. We will talk to you. So don't listen to anybody who is telling you who we are when they never even talk to us. We have been working, we know what we have been doing, we know who we have been talking to, and we are going to be talking to all of the Nevisians in Nevis in the near future. We have had a success story of building from scratch, and we recognize that Nevis has fallen flat. We intend to pick it up and build it from scratch, but we're going to do it with the people of Nevis.
Okay. Anybody needs more evidence? That was not the Concerned Citizens Movement. That was not the Nevis Reformation Party. That was not the newly launched MRM. MRM. Now you need more evidence, right?
No.
Okay. Brand, you need more.
No.
Okay. Here's some more though. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. Could we hear from Mr. Fleming, please?
You've got a question for him? Okay. They wanted to hear from you.
Good evening. I am very much a part of the Alliance. The reason for me to be a part of the Alliance is, the main thing is because of the love that I am getting from the organization. The true sense of the whole organization is about people of Nevis, and the way they've been hurting and no one been looking out for their interests. I see the Alliance bringing that to the forum and bringing a great sense of love and care for the people of Nevis. And that's what I've been hungry for, and that's what I've been looking for. I mean, look at the graduation. So many children graduated, still on the street looking jobs. So many credits, so many passes, and still cannot find jobs for these young people. We are saying, and what the Alliance is saying, they're about the people of Nevis and searching and making a better life for the Nevisian young people and the whole. And I'm solely looking at that, and I'm saying that is what I've been looking for. The Big Brother program that I am in searching, I've been crying for. I've been crying for that. The Big Brother program. I mean, I live in St. James's. and I've been asking over the years, when we gonna get a group to come and talk to these young men who sit on the block, who sit on the sidewalk? When we gonna reach out to them before they start doing criminal activities in this country? Are we gonna wait? And now we are waiting too late. And that's why the Alliance is here today. And the Alliance is here today to bridge that gap, to make a difference. The Big Brother program, going into the schools, get them before they reach out, get them together, create them, bring them as friends. That's what I'm looking forward to. So, yes, I am 100% behind the Alliance, and I'm looking forward to some of the great programs that are going to be rolling out very, very soon. I'm again saying to you, you're welcome to chat with us, and we're very happy to have you a part of us, because everybody is welcome under that umbrella.
And in your own case, as you stated earlier, the Alliance gave you love.
A lot of love. And that's what we need. And like we mentioned earlier, the Big Brother program, trust me, is going to work well to decrease crime in this country.
Okay. You heard the Alliance, the People's Democratic Alliance, PDA. Now, the final clip. Financing, Mr. Liebert, because people are always concerned, and you would hear people, for instance, accusing different parties of being funded by, A or X or Y, and then being controlled.
Webo, we come to the people of Nevis with a plan. And as we explain, that we are not into the politicking. And so there isn't anybody who is financing us to control us. Nobody would control us. We understand what it is to build things from scratch, and that is what we are doing. You would have those descendants from the facts, and I think all those people who are trying to say what they think we are, they have not been listening to our message. They have one thing in their mind. They are supporters of some political party, and they have an interest. And so they would call in to defend that political party. We are not fighting for a place in politics.
But you'd agree, Mr. Leiber, though, if you're a public organization representing the public, financing is a fair question.
Financing is a fair question, and this is how we expect to get financing. The people who like our ideas, right, will invest in what we are doing. And you're not going to control anything. We have a structure for everything, and investors, no one investor is going to control anything we are doing.
As it is, everything that we've done is out of most of our pockets.
On the economy,
as it stands.
On the economy, do you have any particular entity, investments in your planning that can perhaps, move the economy and stimulate the economy of Nevis?
Yes, Webo. Again, we're looking at the way government is structured right now. Government try to govern and run business. We feel that government responsibility is to collect taxes, and the businesses should be owned by private people. Government should run them. What we are going to be doing with Nevisians is to ask them to invest into some of these government-run business, which should be privatized, and they would be run like private business. Government would collect taxes.
Okay.
That is why we have the investment fund that we are creating.
So those were the clips, the reminders. So, Dr. Bartlett, you're convinced now that there are 4 political parties?
Well, I have been reminded.
You've been reminded. Mr. Brand?
Well, I'm like Dr. Martin. I guess I was reminded because I live it there.
Niall?
The same level. So am I to be expecting to hear 4 political parties in the race?
But that's
it's
why
very interesting. It's deep, when you listen to this, Webo, this thing is deep in a sense that I can't I can't believe people would come forward and be so, an attempt to be so convincing, and then you hear no more. So I'm expecting, based on their level of commitment which they exhibit in their introduction to the people, we are to be hearing from them.
Well, you see, you might say that I'm either easy to persuade or easy to fool, but Edric won't agree with you because Edric stated here, this can't fool Weber so easy, right? But the point I'm making is that when people, a man's as good as his word, and when people tell me things until they tell me otherwise, I got to roll with what they say. If I ask you a question and you said, okay, you're going to bring this stuff for you tomorrow, Weber, that's all I have to hold on to until you don't bring it. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So I felt a little way because, as I said, always say, my word is all I got. And so when we said 4 political parties and people, I don't think people were debating it in a malicious way. Maybe they wanted to be reminded. So that's the hard evidence. And based on that, I am now calculating, based on what I've heard put out there, it seems to me that you can well have a historic number of candidates competing in the election, because by the evidence that has been presented so far, St. John's seems as if it's going to have 4 candidates running, because you get the Concerned Citizens Movement will be featuring the defender, the incumbent, the premier. The Nevis Reformation Party will be featuring Dr. Bartlett. The MRM will be featuring the leader, Samuel Keynes. And at the time, the PDA did not declare, but as you realize, there were 3 candidates, or 3 persons who, yes, were there. One from St. James, and you heard how eloquent he was just now. In fact, up to, I think, last week, I asked him when he's going to launch. So, and he told me he would let me know. So, you have St. James, looks like it's going to have probably 4 candidates. We just heard the Nevis Reformation Party are launching their candidate, which is the leader, Dr. Hodge, on Saturday. The incumbent for the Concerned Citizens Movement is Mr. Jeffers, the Deputy Premier. And then the PDA, we just heard
a possible candidate.
Yes, but declared. Because remember, he said that the project will be rolling out. It looks as if it include me now. Anyway, so you have that. And then the leader of the MRM, when he was here about 2 weeks ago, said that they have already declared candidates for St. James, St. John's, and St. Paul's.
Yeah.
So, based on that, as of now, St. James is going to be packed up with 4 candidates. Then, Charlestown also will be packed up with 4, based on the utterance. The Honorable Spencer Brand, who is here, is the incumbent there for the Concerned Citizens Movement. And then you have the Nevis Reformation Party has already declared J.D. Keynes as their candidate. The PDA, remember the leader or the deputy leader or president, whichever it go by, Glendale Herbert. I'm not so sure whether he was running in St. John's or St. Paul's, but you know, he was here. And then you had the leader of the MRM, Samuel Keynes, did say that under a month, maybe 2 weeks now to go, that he will be presenting
for St. Paul's.
For St. Paul's. The Gingerland and St. Thomas's does not seem as if it's going to be that rich. The candidates are concerned. So it seems as if we have only had declared intentions for the Nevis Reformation Party. Isles is, and then the Honorable Eric Evelyn is the defender. So we got, you know, I don't know when last you've had so many candidates running in the election.
Well, I don't think we've ever had that, have we?
No. Well, you know, I'm always subject to, you know, correction, but that's why I say I don't think. I can't remember when last we've had so many.
Yeah,
now,
it's interesting.
A fella pulled me aside in Charlestown the other day and reminded me that, remember when they're having Culturama and they have contests and so on, normally you hear candidates declare, but competition night sometimes a different number. So we will see how that goes. Okay, so nowadays I go to 9. Now did I make my case that they are 4?
There are 4, yes, Mr. Herbert.
And I made my case with evidence.
With evidence, convincing evidence.
Convincing evidence. Okay. Now, Mr. Brand, I just wanted to make it clear, and especially for information's sake, for the persons who are out there who perhaps were not following closely and all that. And you did make the point that based on the clips that we played, that party, they're deep.
Yes, sound deep.
And I can't let you get away now. I remember that when you gave me the honor of launching your party as well. You were just as deep or deeper.
Yes, but I stay the course.
You stay the course. So I'm detecting there's a doubt here that you feel some people are not going to stay the course.
Well, I don't know what they're waiting for, but they should have been out there being the unknown. Totally.
Which one? You mean number 3?
Both of them.
The number 3 and 4?
The 2 new one. Yeah, 3 and 4.
Yeah, but remember, if you were listening closely in the clip, they have a different strategy. From the other parties and so on. So probably they're doing a lot of house to house and so on. And I did say I spoke to one of the other candidates who I heard, because we try to get the scoop, and one of the other candidates for the MRM, and we may have them here soon.
Okay, so you did speak to a candidate for the MRM.
Well, sometimes when you're in this business, you get a tip. and you go, and that is why it always makes sense. And when you want the solid information, rumors and so on, we encourage you to go elsewhere. But when you want the hard facts and evidence, that's why we try to. Okay, having said all that, unless anybody would like to make a comment on it, Mr. Brand, I think you said you wanted to mention.
Yes, Weber. Today just a few things. Today at the Prime Minister's press conference, he would have indicated to the nation that the $1,000 assistance program, that there were 3,733 applicants to that program. I did some checks after I heard that number, and out of that number, we saw 237 persons from Nevis would have applied for the assistance. I also did some additional checks, Weber, and observed that a significant portion of that 237 persons were non-nationals. It means that our people here on the island of Nevis are not taking advantage of this $1,000 assistance program for persons who would have had some difficulty with employment over the last few months. The Prime Minister would have also reminded the nation that this program comes to an end on the 15th of September. And the persons who are registered or applicants who would have been in the system by that time would be given the due attention. I just want to say to our people who are finding it difficult with employment and that there is this assistance program. The application forms can be collected from the Ministry of Finance here in Nevis, and I thought that 237 persons was not the kind of numbers that I would have hoped that the people of Nevis would have taken advantage of. So I just want to encourage our people to be reminded that there is this program that they can take advantage of. The second thing, Rebel...
Before you go on, Mr. Brando,
yes.
What's the criteria? Is it possible that the persons don't know whether they qualify, should they apply, or what? So
one of the main deterrent was outlined in the initial stage was that persons who would have received severance payment over the last year or so may not qualify. So I think that was one of the only prohibiting factor. But I think that if there are persons who are in the financial difficulty because of their employment being severed, that they can take advantage of this. Like I said, it was a 3-month program, July, August, and September. And I believe that there is still time for persons who are in that situation who can take advantage of it and who can apply to get this $1,000 assistance. Well, the other thing that I want to put on the table, on the 12th of August, we would have received some 11,700 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. We would have recalled over the months that we have been embarking on this vaccination program that there were persons who were suggesting that they need an alternative. There were persons who were suggesting that they needed to ensure that whatever vaccines are being used, that they are fully approved by the FDA. We are now saying to our people that as of the 1st of September 2021, there is an alternative. We are now saying to our people that as of the 1st of September, that the Pfizer vaccine that has been fully approved by the FDA will be available to the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I am saying to our people, persons from age 12 and over can be vaccinated with this Pfizer vaccine. I am hoping, Robo, that our people will take advantage of this new vaccination initiative. We have seen in recent weeks and in recent days an uptake in the numbers of positive cases here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We cannot wait until, Robo, that we have persons that are deceased in huge numbers to go and take the vaccine. I am begging our people. Yes, there are still some AstraZeneca that is available. Persons who would have taken their first dose have until the end of this month to go and take the second dose. But I just want to say to our people that as of the 1st of September 2021, there is an alternative, and the alternative has been approved by the FDA. Those were some of the issues that some persons were suggesting, requesting, and I think that now that we have the FDA approved, fully approved vaccine and an alternative, I am hoping that our people would take advantage of it beginning as of the 1st of September.
Okay, let me accommodate this caller. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Bebo. This is the old star Jojo. Yeah, what Jojo? The old Calypso.
You get away?
Jojo, yeah. You know, I drive in and I am here the little talk with parties. I sang a song so long. Niggas really love to party, right?
Yes.
The two party moves like it's NRP system. But you remember at the time that they have so much party behind it, right? If you want me to sing a verse for you. Last year was a great one for my country with vast improvement to our economy. The just can tell put telephone left, right and center. And ELD stopper is looking good for the future. At last we are in radio station day. Water works improving day by day. So one night in November, our leaders say, let's party and celebrate the country prosperity. Because everywhere you go, you hold the oil island. You're hearing the slogan, let's party. And this party, young and old, all watch our song. I mean about this session, but party, let's party. But politicians really, really tricky. Got promises, but full of privilege. Yes, vote for the better for your country. Remember what your motto be. Okay?
Oh, what year was that?
Well, I tell you that it's true. You're not a soldier vaccinating.
Yes, I guess.
I tell you that it's true. It's a late moment.
Because the reason why I ask you, because I think Dr. Bartlett,
okay, the name was the NRP, PDP, NNP, and AP, but the last one is AAP, but the full was quickly.
Okay, Jojo.
What I need to love is just NRP and citizen, right? For the rest of them, I don't know whether if it's a change, it's a change, but you would tell at the moment first.
That you think is a light moment. Okay, thank you. Yeah, you know, that is important, because I can remember that you really had a lot of parties at one point in time. That's why I asked him what year it was. I'm probably we should have the song here. Maybe we can check it out. But he said PDP and, you know, so on, and that's everything I think people seemingly forget sometimes. So that is why I was very cautious in saying, I didn't want to say it's perhaps the first time we're going to be fielding so many candidates. But the other important thing that he said at the end was, by the time we end up with a light moment, and I don't know if that was so popular then, but it was interesting. Okay, so Brand, were you finished?
No, not quite.
Okay, go on.
Two other things very quickly. The last time we were here, and it was quite a few weeks ago, the question was asked about the debt of the Nevis Island administration. And I went and pulled my 2021 budget presentation. And in the budget presentation, we had the summary of the Nevis Island administration debt as of 2016 and the subsequent years. In 2016, the debt of the Nevis Island administration was $383.89 million. And that includes government guaranteed debt and the debt of things like commitment to CDB, NIA domestic debt, and the likes. In 2016, as I said, was $383.89 million. In 2017, it was $416.53 million. In 2018, it was $439.06 million. In 2019, it was $461.46 million. And in 2020, up until October of 2020, was $481.54 million. Now, this information is often published in the budget address annually, and it was basically readily available. So I would want to encourage all those who are interested in knowing what the debt is, that and other information. You're having a lot of other historical and statistical information in the budget presentation, and that is how it is on an annual basis. So I just thought I would ensure that I give that information, because I did give a commitment that I would come back with the figures. The other thing that was asked the last time we were here, or it was suggested that there are roads being done. I'm paraphrasing because an election is looming. Now, I have been charged with the minister with responsibility for roads, public works, and I distinctly went and looked at my instrument of appointment, and I really scrutinized it, and I sought to get an understanding of my instruments of appointment, whether there are certain things that I can do or I can't do leading up to 2 years or 3 years before an election. And I realized that there was no such guidance as it regards to my instrument of appointment. The government has a mandate to execute its policies and programs within the 5-year period. And I would recall, Webber, that on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, we have demands for road the length and breadth of Nevis. We have demand for road in Bath Village. We gave a commitment to the people of Bath that we would do some road renovation and upgrade in Bath. That was in the budget last year, and we are committed to that, and we should be having that going very shortly. We gave a commitment to the people of Butlers that we would see some road rehabilitation works in Butlers, and that is ongoing. And there are a number of secondary village roads: Brown Hill, Church Ground, Brown Pasture, Hamilton, Fountain, Westbury, Maynard's Ground, Farms. There is a lady that lives in England, very nice lady. Ever so often she would send me this WhatsApp message and polite, "How are you, Mr. Brand? And when are you coming to Farms to deal with my road?" And she had been doing it for some time. And we have the demand for roads left, right and center all over Nevis. We have the second phase of the Island Main Road to complete from Cliff Dwellers to Nisbets via Newcastle. The road from Cades Bay going up to Camps, Fountain. The people in that area have constantly been asking. So I don't want our people to be under an illusion that roads are being done because, quote unquote, an election is pending. We have roads that are being demanded in Ramsbury. We have drainage issues in Ramsbury. We have draining issues in Paradise Estate, in Stony Grove, in Brown Hill. And I am saying to our people that there really isn't any mandate for any government not to do the people's business, whether it is 2 years before an election or 1 week before an election.
Okay, let me just get a break and then we will come right back. This is Thought That Get Results. Dr. Patricia Bartlett, the Honorable Spencer Brand, Conrad Nair Liber. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. We'll be back after these.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Circuit City, St. Kitts. Keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
Back on this episode of Talk That Get Results with Dr. Patricia Bartlett, the Honorable Spencer Brand, and Naya. Did I get the impression that you wanted to say something just before we went to the break? No?
No.
Dr. Bartlett?
Sure, thanks. Well, it's interesting. Mr. Brand answered the questions that were posed when we were last year. What I found interesting when we were last year, though, is when I asked about the question, the answer to me was, well, if people are going to go into politics, they ought to know these things. And he himself didn't know, but I'm glad that he went and he did the research and he came back to us. But just calling out numbers is one thing, but we have to put the numbers into perspective. And people ought to understand that every year since Mr. Brand has been, that he has reported on, the years that he would have reported on just now, every year meant that the deficit was getting wider and wider, or the public sector debt was getting higher and higher. And he has just said that they have taken it up to 480 something million at the end of last year. And people are projecting, and I kind of think that based on how the spending is going, we probably pass the $500 million mark as it relates to public sector debt, and that is astronomical, at least for the people of Nevis, because what that means is that Naya, you and I, and Mr. Brand, even though he may have more resources than us, all of us together are indebted to this sum of at least $40,000 each. Now, think about that. I don't know how many people would have $40,000 in their account, but when we start looking at the public sector debt as it relates to us as per capita, it means that all of us, the person who just born today, inheriting this debt. But anyway, I'll leave that for another time.
Before we come off of that though, does anybody know when last we didn't have a period of time where the public sector debt was rising?
Yeah, there are some periods that it would, people would have made concerted effort.
And when was that?
Well, if I may, he may not have it in that budget just there, but
that's the reason why the reason why I asked the question is because of my work, I've perhaps been immersed in almost a lot of these discussions, and the rhetoric is always the same, depending on which side you are on. Because I could almost bet you or argue that when the debate, the full discussion comes on this particular topic, you're then going to be hearing in 19 so and so when this party was in power, this is what it wants, this and etc. 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 And that is why I ask a question, and bear me out. Now you're my witness. It's coming.
Yes, well,
so that's why I asked the question.
That's interesting, Rebo. Yeah, but there were periods, because I looked at it too, because after I was chastised the last time that I should know this information, I said, you know what, let me make the effort now to know it. And so I did go back. But we're not, and I don't think that Mr. Brand wants to run on the record of Mr. Amri, because Mr. Amri is out of the picture now. But there were years and Mr. Amri made a concerted effort to bring the debt down, and there were years that you would see that, there was some inroads made on it. Mr. Parry, in his first 2 years of government, made an attempt also, but for circumstances, and people explained their circumstances, the debt would have gone up. But we are not necessarily going to go back and litigate that, because, like I said, people are responsible for what they would have done. And I think sometimes people try to make, the legacy issues forefront.
Okay, just let me take this, Dr. Bartlett. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Weber.
Yes.
And good evening to all of your panelists.
Good evening.
And your listeners at home and abroad. I want to ask Dr. Bartlett a question. Now, she spoke about the debt. Now, I wonder if NRP was in, the debt would have been smaller, given that the central government pays the wage bill in Nevis. Isn't that so?
The central government?
Yes.
The federal government?
Federal, I mean.
No, that's not accurate.
Not now.
The Nevis Island administration pays the wages for the civil servants of Nevis.
Oh, I thought they got the some month, each month.
You wish.
Have they stopped giving subvention?
The federal government do give a contribution to the NIA, but all of it does not necessarily goes toward wages. Is not a figure that is said that goes to the wages of the civil servant.
Right, but it goes to the government.
It goes to the government. That's correct.
All right, so let me go there, because I wanted to answer the question.
You want me to? The question is.
The question is, if
it's the unusual situation,
the COVID and the effect on the economy.
No.
Actually decimated the economy.
But we must have buffers in place. We must anticipate that there would be external factors that could influence.
Which country that?
Every country. Every country ought to be able to operate that way.
The deficit for the U.S.
No, I'm not saying.
The country anticipated the COVID.
But they're in a position that they can afford to pay back.
They're not.
We are not in a position that we can even borrow anymore. Even though we are
Listen to the news. The Republicans are balling murder. America is able to print the money. They're printing. And they're asking the question about the payback. These countries can't. I hear a lot of the parties encouraging the Prime Minister to, go and borrow. Everybody go and borrow. Suppose they go and borrow. Would you prefer them to borrow the money?
Can I answer now?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So we're discussing, you wanted me to answer the hypothetical. And I don't know that I could really answer you, because I don't know what answer you're seeking on it.
No,
but a hypothetical could go either way. But I'm saying the hypothetical could go either way. I know based on how I operate on a personal level, I know that I would put a little something aside. Right. What I recognize in this current administration is that they don't save nothing. So maybe things would have been different. So if that, I hope that sufficiently answers your hypothetical. But dealing with what the actual is, what we are seeing is that the debt is out of control. We don't have much to leverage now to get new debt, and we're saying we don't want to have new debt, but Mr. Brand is talking tonight about fixing roads because he has a mandate to fix roads. But what he's not saying is that there are other things that the people of Nevis would like prioritize over roads. But he's making the case that he has a mandate to fix roads. I'm sorry,
employment.
I'm sorry?
You have to look for projects, whatever they are, that will generate employment in a sufficient quantity.
Yes, and so only in road construction that happens.
So what do you have in mind?
No, but only in road construction that happens. The people who have been most affected, the people who have been most affected.
Okay, why don't we do this? Dr. Bartlett, finish up the point you're making, and then caller, you can address her. Go ahead, Dr. Bartlett.
No, the people who have been most affected since this pandemic would have been women. Those are the ones who would have been most affected. The men, most of them don't even live in homes associated with the kids and the mothers anymore. And so it is not trickling down to them. So what we're finding is that you still have guys who can afford to go in the afternoon on the side of the road and spend. But the families are hurting. And we are saying you must engage in those projects that would enhance the lives and the livelihood of the people in the household, not the people who just going on the road and thing, and then people going up the step to send off money on the Monday morning and stuff like that. The money is seeping out. We're bleeding. Those are the kind of activities that construction workers.
Okay, just a second, caller. Okay, Dr. Bartlett is finished. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
No, I wanted to know, now given what you said about our social structure and family structure, right? What kind of program would you have the government do? Give them an idea. Say, if you did this, not just giving handout, we want productive activity, right? Construction, what I mean. It is to our fault why our men are not forming stable families. So maybe all the parties need to work on that. All right then.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Weber, if I may, I think Dr. Bartlett is being, I hope I'm not coming across as being personal, Doc. I think you are being a little bit mischievous. By saying that when the question was asked, I did not know the answer. I took a position, Webo, when the question was asked, not to give an answer because of not having the exact number. I could have said, oh yes, the debt was over $4 million or the debt was over $300 million. I wanted to make sure that I give to the people of Nevis the accurate information. And when I am not absolutely sure about something, I err on the side of caution. So I don't want it to come across that I don't know what the debt is. Well,
but you will be mischievous too. Because if you look at me and say, well, I ought to know, and you yourself did not know, well, who started to be mischievous?
I wanted to make sure that I give the people of Nevis the accurate information. And that is why I chose not to give a figure on the basis of trying to give the you also said that that we cannot run on the record of the former Premier Vance Army, and I smile because I am noticing that this new NRP there seem to be
Mr. Brand, hold your thought just a minute. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Herbert, and to everyone. Mr. Herbert, I would have wanted to see you before the program this evening. I'm now I'm now having my possession document for the COVID-19 consent form. I went online and found it, and I got somebody to download it and printed it on paper. I have a lot of copies. And what I've noticed in Nevis is I've never, other than when people turn up to take their vaccination, that's the only time this information is shared. Everybody telling you to take the vaccination, but nobody giving you the information. I could now take this information to my doctor. And that is what I was saying all the time. People go in to answer questions that they don't understand. How could somebody who took a vaccination when they was a child remember if they had side effects when they are 8 years old? And that is on the paper. Have you ever had any side effects to a vaccination? So you tell me, Mr. Herbert, how could anyone, not even a minister of government, could remember what happened? Somebody can't say, recall what happened 2 years ago. When they in the courthouse, they say they can't recall. And you expect people to tell me. So I'm telling you, Mr. Herbert, you could get the copy.
So
I also have the information for that. There's a 5-page document for the Minister of Health. This is document that gives them the response, the permission to give people information to whosoever. These are things that the citizens should have been told. The only time I've been going around in Nevis and questioning people who have the vaccination, who don't. And I'm going to share this information. I'm going to photocopy them as much as possible, Mr. Herbert. And I'm going to give them out in this country.
So
because people have been lied.
So you made the point that when people ask certain questions, and sometimes you can't even remember what happened 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
And how you expect people to answer. So if I were to ask you a question and you don't know the answer, then you say what?
I don't know.
Okay.
But then that's not going to be acceptable on the farm.
Who told you that?
Because these are yes and no answers.
So if somebody asks you if a yes or no question and you don't know, then you say you do not know, correct?
But have you ever been listening to the information that's been given out?
No, but I'm going based on what you're presenting to me.
Yes, because
right. So if you ask me now, if there's going to be a hurricane tomorrow, right?
Yes.
I could answer yes, I could answer no. But if I don't know, I said I don't know, right?
But what I'm telling you, I've been asking people about these same questions.
Yes.
And how they answer.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, these are the way they've been answering.
Which way they answer?
They're not saying they don't know. People are coming on this show and say that they got vaccination when they was a child and did not have no side effects.
Right. So
that over and over and over on this program.
So then, if I tell you that I had a vaccination from I was a child, and all the vaccinations I ever had, I never had any side effects, then your point is what? That I can't be right?
No, you can't tell me as a child. But can you remember how old you was when you had that vaccination?
If I can remember how old I was?
Yes.
If I don't remember, is it possible that somebody could have told me or reminded me?
Yes, but these are the questions, Mr. Herbert.
Okay, I think I got you. I think I got your point.
So could I share the information with you so that you could go and share it with the public?
When you said share it, what do you mean? What I would suggest that you do is, you mean you would like to come here and share it?
No, like I said, I have copies of the papers then.
Yeah, well, maybe you can, and you want to give them out to them?
I would like to give it to the media, give it to every political party in Nevis.
To give them out to the people?
Yes. So they
no, well, I don't think I'll be able to take your papers and give them out to people.
No, I don't want you to give them. I want you, the radio station, to have these papers, so that when people call in and speak about COVID, I start telling people, they could keep them.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we discuss it off here?
Yes, sir, we will.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. I interrupted somebody.
Yes,
Mr. Brand?
it was
Yes.
me.
Okay.
Dr. Bartlett indicated that we ought not to run on the record of the former Premier Van Samre. And I am hoping that the new NRP would take that same advice. And
not to run on the record of Van Samre?
Not to run on the record. No.
So
not to run on the record of Dr. Simeon Daniel, because that is what they seem to be doing.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good night, brother.
Yes.
And good night to Dr. Bartlett and good night to Mr. Brandy.
Good night.
Good night.
And to the other video.
Naya.
No, brother, you know that when the CNT government went to get into government, it was under the watch of the IMF with some $1 million was off by the farm administration. And you know, because of good management and whatsoever, we went in, we get in government and the IMF. Whether, could you imagine if the farm administration was in government still? And we got that IMF debt. And this fight of this COVID-19, you know what the situation, the federation is, you know? So whether, you go one way, opposition will always put aside when they're out, and they're sitting when they're out. But I believe that this unity government has done a good job in spite of the COVID. We better than many in certain ways. Look at the stimulus package. Twice now the government doing it to afford to help the ordinary man. And those who are disabled could get something a month time. I believe that sometimes people just criticize the criticize fake. Because I believe that I know that is a opposition. The opposition is always attack and say this and say that because they want to get the election and convince people. But I do not believe that to convince people in that kind of way. Because the whole situation in a crisis and this government going and doing what they can do to the ordinary man and woman in the federation. You understand? So criticism is always there, but we got the government got to do what we got to do to please the ordinary man, especially with this COVID right now, the COVID situation. Some people they don't want to take the vaccine because of the political belief. Some people don't want to take it because of the religious whatever. But whatever, the country must move on by somehow. We are the wonderful of God. This program is good there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, yes.
Well, the national debt or the NIA debt is always a subject matter. I think it's more so now, you know, with the general crisis situation. But, you know, I'm not a politician here. And so my concern is whether we gain value for money. And of course, you know, I speak towards the debt when I probably speak towards wastage of public funds, wastage of you know, done by the government in terms of their approach to projects and such things. You know, the politicians sometimes speak to the national debt, especially during, you know, our coming close to an election and so forth. But I think generally there are people who are concerned about the way public funds are managed, and I think that's where I'm sitting really. I often wonder if we get value for money, and sometimes whether or not the government situate that in the realization of these projects, it would bring back to the people some benefit that we can equates it, like we can say, well, yes, we are getting value for money. Because one particular thing always affects me sometimes, you know, that is the building that we call the NIPAC building. I think that was built under the NRP administration, and it cost something between $15 to $17 million. And I think it was a loan. It was a loan given to the island administration. And beautiful building, you know. Hopefully, I thought it would have been a good thing.
But you know the building is not completed, right?
I don't know. Oh, yeah.
You don't know?
I don't know.
But the hospital is not completed either, but that's what it's going.
Make it worse. I'm saying this, right, because to me, I mean, it was built for a purpose. I don't really care who built the building, but I know it cost the people $17 million.
Okay, Naya, I'm going to come back to you. Thank you for holding. Go ahead, please.
Good night to you and your panel. I heard a very profound statement today by, I think she was a sports journalist. She said it's okay to not know and to say you don't know. What is not okay is to not then go and find out. Okay? So I think that basic information that the citizens should know, and definitely those vested with the authority over things like the public purse should know. These should be available. You can't just remain in ignorance. So I will challenge Mr. Brand to at least commit to having answers on his next appearance on things like what the national debt is and what the income from the CBI is. Okay? Don't let it keep on hanging out there. Okay? And could he also commit to advocate for the operationalizing of freedom of information so that the public, journalists, whoever with an interest can have ready access to important data like this? That's it.
Okay, thank you. Caller, could I ask you a question? You know, what I find is interesting in this whole thing about maybe when you operate it in politics, maybe you have to give certain, you know, now what I call it, you have to be politically correct with everything.
Yeah.
Because I believe in the private sector, if somebody were to ask me a specific question with some details, I don't feel pressured to say to them, you know, I don't have the details at my fingertip, and if it's necessary, I can get them for you. I don't see anything that's wrong with that from a private citizen, but maybe I don't know. When you're in the political arena, you have to operate differently.
No, I don't see. I
don't get it.
I don't think they have.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Rebo.
Yes.
Yes, and good evening, Mr. Brand and Noyo and Dr. Bartlett.
Good evening.
Yeah, Dr. Bartlett, I have a little straight question for you. But before I do that, Rebo, you see some people want to come and make a statement and they don't want you to interject. So I don't, sooner they don't spit, they shut them out and they run. They're not good soldiers. Now, Dr. Bartlett,
well, this might be a light moment. Maybe they're like the Afghan soldiers. as soon as you think, they lay down their arms and run. Just a light moment.
Yeah, Dr. Bartlett, I hear you telling Mr. Brand that he cannot run on former minister, Mr. Amory, on his record.
Right.
Okay, then that's clear. But why did you go and support the NRP with the record what they have? Because you remember when...
I'm not understanding. Clarify that.
Okay. You're going to join the NRP, right?
Yes.
Okay, and they have a bad record which was wrong. It is Soita Garden man. When the government in St. Kitts failed to guarantee the check to the NRA government that everybody could pay the bill, that was bad.
Yes.
And a lot of people condone that.
Yes.
But why did you go now and go on an NRP party with that kind of record?
But that's past. That's why I said we're not running on someone else's record. Nobody in the party right now running on Mr. Parry's record. We say run on your own strength.
But you join the party.
No, darling.
Don't tell me no.
No.
Well, what party
I
you
just, no.
Which party you join?
No.
CCM?
I don't know who's going to take you to court for something that your dad did 20 years ago. Who's going to do
years
that?
ago?
Yes. Who's going to hold you responsible for what your father did?
Listen, they're not going to carry a court. They're going to say, listen, you know what went on to the nearest people them, right? To starve them, and they can't pay the bill. But you still going to join the people them who condone that wrong.
That is if you're living in the past, but I'm not a person who lives in the past.
Where they got history book?
No. I already said here that I'm not a fan of history. I am not a big history person.
Dr. Bartlett, you should be in politics.
Okay, darling.
You're supposed to be able to go back and bring forward.
That is your style, not mine.
To go forward.
That's your style, not mine. I'm going on my record.
You got on the wrong team because they condone wrong. Thank you very much.
Okay, but all right, sure, that's fair. That's how we see it.
That's interesting, Dr. Bartlett. See, that statement you just made.
Which one?
That you are not running on anything in the past. You mean that?
No. I'm running against some people who are in office now. I'm dealing with the current situation. I am not running against who would have been up in times.
Okay, let me take
it.
On. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes. Mr. Robert, you wanted to ask me a question?
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Weber, good evening.
Yes.
See, what I want to start to think about doing in St. Kitts and Nevis, see how we could rectify the bad from the past, but we cannot forget the past. Because if we don't deal with the past, we can't go forward. Even though it wouldn't better appear to us that we're going forward. See, the greatest problem I have for 40 years between St. Kitts and Nevis, and I cannot get enough people in St. Kitts to understand the importance of what I'm dealing with for the last 40 years. Just give Nevisians what is due to them. And all of my life that I've studied politics in the last 40 years, I've been a politician. Nevisians continue to get a bad deal from St. Kitts. Even under this new administration, we have a lot more given to Nevis, but a lot more can't work with me. A lot more don't mean nothing to me. Give Nevision what is theirs. That is my greatest problem. For instance, we formed a unity setup 7 years ago. And Weber, when Mark Brantley went up on that stage, we had a hurricane, earthquake, tsunami, everything, not a man dead. It was the best feeling I ever had in my entire life. How can the people in St. Kitts, the leaders, remember those days? It's not like the reference that the guy said to you, that in court people said they can't recall. Because I want to tell that gentleman I want to meet him. He's hard to deal with, but I will deal with him. Even when you hear a man say in court, he cannot recall, he lie. He can recall, but he don't want to recall anything at the moment. Let's go back to the unity. We don't have no unity anymore, unfortunately. But I want to congratulate the government for staying together. Now, I don't believe enough is being done to sit down and iron out the rightful amount of money that should be given to Nevis, because I am absolutely sure that tonight when a question was asked, I heard somebody in the background say, "You wish," or "we wish." I like that comment, whoever it came from. Weber, the simple matter is, St. Kitts and Nevis could have been living the best in any country in the world. But jealousy, grudgery, enmity continue to develop and never stop. You see that money, that culture made reference to a while ago? It is one of the worst feelings I ever had with the government in St. Kitts. Stopping money for your sister.
St. Kitts and Nevis' brother and sister. And I am calling on the politicians to grab hold of themselves and understand that new visions are part of us. And we cannot hide money down here in the treasury, but Nevis can know how much money is hidden. And let me tell you this, I am Carlton L.Y. Emmanuel Rastafari without locks, dupont, talk puppy. The biggest problem we have in St. Kitts and Nevis is not that we don't have money, but we have money hidden. And the monies that we have hidden is hidden that Nevis can't know, but we only use Nevis to form a government when it's convenient to us. Let me go off the phone so somebody could get a chance. One last point. I don't know who's Bartlett, I don't know who's the lady, but I find she's strong and she can stand up. Let her have her way. This is a magnificent discussion you're having here tonight with two people from two different sides. I wish we could have it down here. This is a magnificent show, and we should make this show possible where youngsters can listen and learn something, not the continuous rhetoric all the time. How are we going to teach the youngsters? Nevis not getting the rightful share, and that's the crux of the matter. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you. Okay, I interrupted somebody.
Naya.
Okay, Naya. Yes.
Yes, Webo. And the same thing I'm talking about here. You see, I'm talking about the NIPAC building, and Mr. Van is quick to jump and say, well, it's not finished and it's built by... I don't even remember who built the building, but I'm a member of the public. And so I'm concerned about public funds and how it's being spent and how it's being taken care of, you know. So I make reference to that particular building because I'm talking here about value for money. Because when we speak about NIA debt and so forth, I am now thinking, I wonder if I would mind if the debt go up some more if we know that the hospital or we're going to have a dialysis machine is going to be there. I'm not sure if I would mind. Maybe I'll be happy because, you know, at least, you know, we're getting some value for money. That's how members of the public look at things. And when I look at the NIPAC building, it cost Nivision some $17 million. We're still probably paying for it, you know. And the purpose, it's not serving its purpose.
But you don't think, Naya, possibly, as the last caller just said, is that we shout so much at one another and make so much noise that we don't even have a good debate or discussion.
That is
because I keep saying all the time, around this time, all you hear is phrases, cliches, credibility, accountability, and these things and so on. And then even as the point that you just made, that you're spending so much on debt and so on, the debt is so high and so on, but what did you buy? Was it worth it?
What did you buy?
What did you buy? And then you say, well, okay, fine, that's good, etc., etc. But all you hear is the thing is too high, etc., etc., etc. And as I said, as the caller said, the question is, because you see, the people who normally make those statements and make those noises, they don't allow certain people to question them or examine them and to have a good discussion. You just make the noise. No?
I don't understand that. So I'm talking not from a political point of view. I have no, you know, I'm not running elections, so I don't need to say. But what I'm saying is that that particular building, to me, it's now used as, no disrespect to the entrepreneur, it's now used as a movie theater, mostly. It is a wonderful building for a wonderful purpose, and it hasn't been realized at all. It's almost to me like, this is a joke? What happened? You know, it's a movie theater now. Blockbuster movie when it's supposed to be a place of creative arts, drama presentation, something the Nivisions know about from since long time with Culture Armor when we didn't have a building to do it in. So I wondering what's going on with the objectives and the method and strategy employed and the seriousness behind these objectives, because the people have to pay these debts. So I'm talking about value for money. I am not sure how the national debt is going or the Nevis Island administration debt, and as I say, maybe I don't mind it go up a few more million if I know we're going to have a completed hospital, or we're going to have the amenities to make us feel
But
wholesome.
what if they argue, Naya, that debate and that information that you're talking about you do not know? Just like how Mr. Brand brought a document and said, see it here.
See it here.
What if they said that document has information has been presented, but maybe you were not responsible or interested enough to check it out? Good evening, thanks for holding. I'll come back.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Now, Mr. One question to you as a minister in the Lewis Island administration. Now, Mr. Brand, now, you in a federal government, right?
Yes.
The Lewis Island Assembly government, they don't go out and invest to bring investment to Lewis. Everything is supposed to be the federal government. That's a question to you, because I always hear good Captain Nicky say that Lewis is not getting the full share, not getting enough. So I would just like to know, because it's unity government darling. I believe that Lewis has come a long way, and a lot of projects and so do over the SIDF fund, the CBI fund, and I believe that under the state of this COVID, I believe that Lewis has done well. So I would like to know that if the Lewis administration saying that to go and look at investment towards Lewis to see that it's for the workers and to do projects and all these things. And instead of the federal government that is reality. I never get it sure, because things it is bigger than Lewis. And I hear Captain Nicky saying all the time, Lewis is not getting the full share. So I would like you to answer the question to me, please.
Caller, two things is at play here, right? You spoke about the SIDF funds and project on Syncits. And the record would show that quite a number of those projects that were completed on Syncits did have involvement from the SIDF fund, right? Over the last few years, the Nevis Island administration have been approaching a number of developers to have a number of development done on Nevis. Two of them comes to mind very quickly. The Spring Air development, which was a project that was slated to be constructed up, I think it's Westbury Road going up there. It was a project that was to be done by a number of by some Chinese folks. We also had the Aman Hotel that we branded to One and Only. And what we have found over the last year and a half, 2 years, is that the onset of COVID have derailed a number of the financing packages for some of these projects. I personally have been intimately involved with the One and Only project, self, the legal advisor, PSO Finance, and the likes. And what we are seeing that there is extreme difficulty for the developers to access financing. They basically had an agreement, so to speak, with some financiers out of England. The onset of COVID virtually derailed that. You are absolutely correct, caller, that the SIDF funds have been used to help and to assist a number of developments on the island of Nevis, right? The SIDF fund would have also, caller, assisted the exploration of the geothermal project here on the island of Nevis. So the value of the SIDF fund to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis have benefited the island of St. Kitts more than it have benefited the island of Nevis. However, I would go on to say that we have benefited from the SIDF with the Mondo Chak. We have benefited from the SIDF by purchasing a new Wattzilla generator for the power plant. We have benefited from the SIDF for ensuring that there were some pieces of equipment that was purchased for the Long Point port. We have benefited from the SIDF to make sure that there was some equipment and other stuff that was purchased for the hospital. So there have been some benefits. Has it been enough? I would say not. I would say that the island of St. Kitts would have benefited more from the SIDF than the island of Nevis. Are we seeing increased benefits from the unity development? I think that there can still be more. And I am one who believes that even though that there may have been a greater working relationship between both government, and we have had the opportunity to elevate our people from the island of Nevis. From since this unity government came on stream, the island of Nevis would have seen a number of its own citizens being elevated to high and prominent position within the federal structure, and that has never been seen before. And I think to the level that it is now. And I think while we have made some progress with the unity structure, caller, I would sit here tonight and say to you that we still have some ways to go.
Naya, Dr. Bartlett, anybody?
Well, just piggybacking on what Naya would have said earlier, as it relates to value for money, and I think that is one of the biggest, I think, failing. I don't want to make it sound like I'm on the platform, but I think that is, I can't find another way to describe it, but as a failing, because you see. Mr. Brand, and I thank him for that. The last time we were here, just based on the comment he made, that stimulated a level of interest in this particular area that I went and I dig deep, you know. And you know, one of the things I found is that since 2018, the government in the budget address would have said that monies, they had already had monies committed from external sources, and that was going to see, and I want to read verbatim, ongoing projects. You say government expects to complete works on a number of ongoing projects, namely the Treasury building renovation, construction of the Newcastle police station, completion of the water taxi pier, and the Alexandria Hospital expansion project. 2018, that was supposed to happen. We were supposed to have the completion of all these projects, and tonight as we sit here, we see, well, maybe the Treasury, I'll give them that. We still see the police station. I'm not so sure it is habitable yet, but I don't know. You know, I think from what I've heard, because I've never been there. The water taxi pier, I don't know if it is completed to the extent that people expected. You know, maybe our expectation did not necessarily align with their objectives. And then the Alexandria Hospital expansion project. One would think that when we're facing a challenge such as the COVID, and we anticipate that we might have to have extra bed space and all that, that would be a priority project to get it done. But now we're hearing about roads, more roads being done. I mean, priorities. And I think that is one of the issues that I have, and that's why I say I don't want to get distracted by who would have done what in 2009 and them kind of times, because I don't want to go back that far. I want to deal with now. The reason why you have so many people who want to get into the race now, because I would have never heard about all these other parties, and it's a good thing Jojo called in tonight. Thank you, Jojo, to put perspective to this thing. It means when you see people agitating like this, it means that something is amiss. It means that things are not being done right, and people, all like myself, I would have voted for my cousin last time, but I was like, no, I'm not getting the kind of representation that I want, and that is what motivated me to get involved. And so the fact that you have so many other people who want to get involved is a signal that things are not going right, because all the monies that Mr. Brand would have talked about that they got from the SIDF and all the rest of it, what is there to show for it? And that is the question, that's the fundamental question that we're asking as division. Where is the money? Okay. When the Prime Minister would say he sent over $300 million, and we're still indebted at this level, and we spend over $300 million that he would have made reference to?
Okay, let me get this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to your panelists. A very interesting discussion. Mr. Brand, thank you for the information that you've given us, because I don't think we get this information enough. It should be on more of a regular basis. I would like to ask the panelists, and yourself, Webbo, what are your thoughts about the SIDF fund being used for investors, non-Nivision and Kittitian investors? When the SIDF fund came out some years ago, I happened to sit in some of the meetings that they had at the credit union, and I was of the impression that this was a mechanism put in place to assist locals in getting into entrepreneurial projects for the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. So I'm very curious to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on SIDF fund monies being used for investors, non-Kittishan and Nevision investors? And that will include those who have passports through the citizenship by investment. I'll listen off here.
Caller, before you go, right? You know, I just want to make a comment on the question that you asked. And I think it's a very interesting question. And based on my involvement and history over the years, and I made a comment earlier in alluding to it, what I find is interesting is how the people who put themselves up for certain types of representation don't put themselves in the position to answer the voters' questions such as you, or they don't take questions from certain people which might be probing, and as a consequence of that we go through a whole election cycle. We get a set of rhetoric and so on and so forth. For instance, a person might decide they're going to run, and then they will tell you, when I get in I will do A, B, C, D, E. But I would like to ask that person a question based on that particular statement, and sometimes you never get to. But the person end up in the position. So the question that you just asked will be a good question to ask the people who are running. So I just wanted to make the comment. Yes.
This would be fantastic tonight, because I'm sure many of them listen to the show if they were calling and help us out. Because I know a lot of people want an answer to that question. A lot of people would like to know. Are you telling me that there are not enough young entrepreneurs in St. Kitts and Nevis who would like to have access to that money for their businesses, especially at a time like now when so many people are out of work? And I'm not talking about a stimulus package. I'm talking about encouragement of our local people to become business.
But here's the thing, though. That same point that you're making, you said it was done before. Did you?
I said what was done before.
The terms of the SIDF monies, you said that you sat in some meetings or discussions or something?
Yes.
And you got the you understood, or you were persuaded that the SIDF monies was supposed to be going towards entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. Right. And some did. Correct?
You know what? I don't know.
You don't know.
I honestly don't know.
But you see, I think that some did, and then I don't know if they told us the result of that program.
Okay.
Okay. All right, but I'll let them answer your question.
Thank you, Weber.
Yes.
Thank you.
Weber, there is this talk about this $300 million for the island of Nevis. And it's a nice round figure, you know. It's a lovely figure.
Is the Prime Minister say so?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy that you say it. What I hope that would also be said is, how much did St. Kitts get? Everybody knows that Nevis get $300 million, and it's a lot of money. How much did St. Kitts get from the SIDF or out of the selling of the passport? That is a question that we should ask and answer. You know, Weber, the benefits to Nevis so far from the SIDF. We have received funds for the resurfacing of the airport runway. We have received funds for the purchasing of equipment at Long Point, for the purchasing of equipment of the control tower at the Vance W. Amway International Airport, for the expansion of the Alexander Hospital project, for the restoration of the Treasury building that they burned down in Charlestown. We have received funding for the water enhancement project that we have seen taking place on the island of Nevis. We have received funding for the improvement of sporting facilities on the island of Nevis. We received funding from the SIDF of the purchasing of a new Watzilla generator.
Okay, Mr. Brand, I'm going to interrupt you, and I'm going to go to a caller, and please remember your last word. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Rebel?
Yes, you're on the air. Could you go ahead?
Yeah, the reason why I called that because I don't practice this. I would like the guy, if possible, to tell us out of the $300 million that I heard 1,000,000 times that Nevis was promised. I wonder if we could get this puzzle solved tonight. Because I understand from my sources, because I have a lot, only $220 million Nevis had received, and it's bothering me. So let's see if we got the jigsaw puzzle work out tonight. I don't know the gentleman, but can he tell us, if he can, how much money they received so far?
Caller.
Yes.
Let me say this, right? There is a lot of figures. There is a lot of figures that is being bandied about.
Yes.
I honestly cannot sit here and tell you exactly how much Nevis have received, because the numbers would have gone back to from since all the way back in the Nevis Reformation Party time, when they would have received some benefits from the SIDF. So I honestly, I'm hearing this $300 million, right? And it sounds like a lot of money. And people keep talking about this $300 million that Nevis get.
But it is a lot of money.
Right? But Nevis have received, and people seem to think that this is $300 million that somebody wrote a check and said, here to Nevis. This is monies that would have received on the island of Nevis over a period of time.
I got another question to ask you.
Yes.
I'm getting the feeling though that Nevis was promised $300 million in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Because I have people who want me to go to high-level meetings to give me the information, and I refuse. But my friend, I don't know you. Once you're going to continue in politics, I, Carlton DuPont, want to say to you, you have a warm feeling going through the ear. If you could come a little clearer than the normal politician, people will love you. Are you going to run in politics? Or are you just a minister?
I intend to run and retain my seat in St. Paul's, Charlestown, sir.
But you're going to win. I want to meet you before election. Let me say something to you. Do not go in politics to become rich out of it. Go in to work hard for the people. Let me say this again so people could know what I mean in St. Kitts Nevis. I want to know if tonight somebody can answer. Is it true that this Prime Minister that I love so much had promised Nevis in the last 6 years, not what the NLP would have gotten? Is it true that in the last 6 years, Nevis were promised $300 million? Sound like a lot of money. Ain't a lot of money compared to the money we have down here. That's my problem. I like when you say that. Is it true that they were promised $300 million under this administration in the last 6 years? Mr. You all have a good show. I wouldn't call back.
All right, thank you.
Good night. Well, let me continue from where I left off. I think I ended at the purchase of the diesel generator for the Nevlec. There was also funds given to the construction of the water taxi pier and the Mondo athletic track. And those are physical infrastructure development that would have taken place on the island of Nevis, along with the monthly subsistence that the federal government would have sent over directly. You add up all of that, starting from NRP come to this present.
No.
You're hearing 300,000,
No.
300 million. You're hearing all kind of figures. Well, Dr. Bartlett, if you know the exact figure, tell the people what the exact figure is.
No. You already acknowledged the 300 million, but your counter to that was you're comparing to what syndicates got. Okay, so you got 30%. Let's say that syndicates got 10 times 70. Okay, I don't want to get into what syndicates got, because you don't know how much syndicates got, so you still don't know how much more they got proportionately than you. But notwithstanding that, that is not what the central argument was, though. It centered around what you would have done with the 300 million, and you call out a few infrastructural projects that you would have worked on. You didn't necessarily share with us the status of all those things, whether they were complete or still have an eye next to them. Because the Munda track, for example, you have the track, but you have no shade, you know, have no, for most of us in the vision is not very impressive. You just have something on the ground, you know. So for us, that is incomplete. For you call out the hospital, for us, that is an incomplete. You know, so when you call out all these things and you ain't complete none, I mean, you need to impress us that the $300 million was well spent. But when the Prime Minister spoke about the $300 million, he was not speaking about these disbursements relative to what he would have done under Douglas. He was talking about what he would have done in the recent Unity construct.
You're sure about that, Dr. Bartlett?
Well, let me ask.
Dr. Bartlett, you sure about that?
Okay, well, you qualify, because
listen.
back to NRP.
Okay, listen. The $300 million, that $300 million is talked about. The issue is what? That the federal government gave the Nevis Island administration $300 million and they did not account for it. That's the point that is being made.
Well,
listen, what I want to do is to get, for me and Daya's sake then, get it into perspective rather than just talking, and that's what we do. We get in. What I would like to know, Naya, you'd like to know as well?
Yeah,
is it an issue that somebody says the Prime Minister gave the Nevis Island administration $300 million and there's an accusation that they cannot say what they've done with it? That is what it's all about?
I did not raise the 300 million.
Or was it just a promise and
okay, well, let me put the question this way then. Can we put into perspective, in brief, what is the argument about $300 million?
Well, for me, when I looked at the 300 million, my argument is this. How is it we would have received 300 million over the period that I understand it to be? It may not necessarily coincide with the period that Mr. Brand understands it to be, so he's going to get the opportunity to at least reference, what period of time he's talking about. But for me, I understand it to be since the Unity construct was, made. And that goes back from 2014? When was it?
2015.
Okay. So that is the period of time that I think that I am looking at. And I'm saying that I have not yet seen enough on the ground to represent the spending of 300 million to still have a 500 million debt. I'm saying we should have been able to at least see more completed projects that were more impactful for the people of Nevis, done in a way that would satisfy me, the PA and the other party, so that it would not motivate us to get dispassionate about wanting things to change. But what we would have seen since the Unity construct, with this 300 million is a debt climbing, 300 million added to that spent, and a lot of projects that are not very impressive.
Okay.
In this section of an incomplete.
I'm very sorry. Please call back. We have a few minutes left. The other question I'll have is that, when the Prime Minister made the comment, he did not give any other details or explanation. Because, that's the other part of the question that I would have.
Mr. Brand would have been on the receiving end.
No.
I am saying.
Listen.
Yes.
Dr. Bartlett, you said that you were made to understand that the Prime Minister said that he gave Nevis $300 million.
Yes.
Right. So I'm asking if he added anything to it. For instance, you said that you haven't seen any projects on the ground, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
And you see, that is why I said that what I like to do is look at certain things in depth rather than just, make certain comments, because I'd like to know, for instance, you said projects on the ground. For instance, was any spent on salaries? Was any spent on education, etc., etc., etc.? Those are some of the questions I would like to ask. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. You're on the air.
End the show until I can get an answer from the guys there. But the other thing I'd like to say, when will we get to the point where we don't have to hear the Rasta man without locks? I think that's how he described himself, of having this information, or even some of the information that Mr. Brand gave tonight. Had this not come up, we would have probably never heard it. How is there a mechanism in place? And this is talk that gets resolved. So I'm appealing to the Prime Minister or whoever is in charge to please, as a country, let us have annual updates at least, or maybe more, of something like this. We keep hearing 300 million being banded around, but nobody seems to be clear as to what happened with it, how it was used. You yourself are asking a lot of questions, Webble.
No, I'm asking the question. I'm asking the questions based on the comments that are made here just now, because I could make certain other points, but I do, as you just indicated, thought that get results. I don't just talk, and there are certain questions I would prefer to put to certain people. And I had said earlier that there are certain people who perhaps in a certain position would rather not be questioned by certain people also, and they know why.
Well, I'm hoping that this is not the last discussion that we're hearing about this. And Mr. Brand, while we're on it tonight, can you,
I almost, caller, like I said, we're pressed for time. I almost can suggest to you that, you see, for instance, we know the persons who have the necessary information. Like a couple of months ago, we were dealing with a particular issue, and people decided they wanted to call here to talk and flesh the issue out, and I invited them to call the Premier, who they were talking about. And they called the Premier, and then they settled it after that.
Okay.
So I'm almost sure that since, like I said, we're pressed for time, maybe if you all call him tomorrow and ask him about his $300 million, maybe he'll have the answer.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, this is, hello, good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening, panelists. I'm calling on behalf of myself as well as a newly registered voter in my household who has been listening to a lot of the political stuff going around. When would the government and or the opposition sit down and educate the people as to what really goes on in government? How does government work? Most people listen to the budget address and cannot interpret the figures that keep flying around. They don't know what it takes to make a budget, where the money comes from. Everything is just up in the air. If you do not work in government in certain sections, you do not know how a budget comes together.
Okay, quickly, caller, quickly, let me ask you quickly. You said when they present the budget, you can comprehend it, right?
Most people cannot.
Right, but you like to know certain things. Is there a particular method or forum that you would prefer to have it done?
The government, I've said it at different meetings, the government can train the people inside government and outside so that the message gets out, so that when people are talking about figures, they know how they come about. Most people don't know.
And so those people who are trained, they must do what?
Train the people.
Right, but how would they get information to you? That's what I'm speaking about.
To the public?
Yes.
Well, those who inside know, the information will flow out eventually.
But how?
But if people who work inside government themselves do not understand how the figures work inside government, the information will never flow out, and that has been a problem for many years. I mean, to fill a pothole, for example. Just to give a simple example, it may be easier for you to fill that pothole than for the many line items that you have to go through and paperwork to get that pothole filled. And because they do not understand the simple processes of how government operates inside and within that budget book, most people are left confused. So I'm calling out on behalf of the younger people to get the information out there. Even the simple process of elections, how they do it, how do counting go on in the back.
Yeah, but Carl, I'm asking you, what is your suggestion? How they should get it out?
Train,
and you mean
and have consultations with the public where they could bring simple presentations to the public to show them a simple example.
Okay, but you mean by having town hall meetings? What? That's
so
what
the town hall meetings are actual programs that are set up.
Okay.
You follow 1 step 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
To let them understand. They don't have to go to every little nitty-gritty, but at least the general process so that people are more informed so that they could discuss better.
Okay. All right, thanks much.
Okay.
Okay, well, this will be our final call. Good evening, you got half a minute.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Weber. To everyone, good evening. We are calling from the neck of the woods, saying, you know, you are saying out to listen to the program. I try to listen to all the words because I love to hear this lady, this beautiful lady voice. Patricia, I want when the people them call you and say good night to the gentlemen, they must remember this beautiful lady who is sitting there speaking. So it's a good night, gentlemen and ladies.
Okay. All right. I think they got you.
Thank you.
All right. No. That looks like it. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, talk that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed in the